Okay, right, lads and lasses. So we're looking at animating elements within your 2D game production now, and I'm going to be looking at how to animate some of your characters or your enemies or certain NPCs or whatever they might be in your level. This is about animating those now. So previously we've looked at backgrounds. This is what we're going to look at now. We're going to look at characters and animating enemies. And this work here has kindly been donated by Jordan. So Jordan Fanwell has allowed us to use this beautiful dinosaur to have a look at some animation. So thanks, Jordan. Big shout out to the Big J. Follow him on all social media network. So with this dinosaur, okay, we want to be able to animate it. Now what we've got here is all of the different elements of the body, of the torso, the arms, the legs, the head, on different layers. So we're looking to animate these separately. Now if you're creating a human character or a humanoid character, then obviously you might have more elements here. So if you wanted to be able to bend at the knee or at the elbow, you would have those separately too. Okay, maybe you'd want to move the hand as well, or you've got a weapon. They all need to be on separate layers. And what we've got is all of these on their own layer, and there's no background in the Photoshop file. That's really important. So can you see that the checkered box, we can tell that there's no background on there, and that's really important. So if you do have a background on there and it's white, you want to double click on it where it says background and then delete it by just dragging it into the delete, or have the layer selected and hit delete. Now what I suggest you to do is make sure you label your different elements cleanly in Photoshop. So at the minute we've got head. You'll notice that my arms and legs, I've labelled them in a certain way. So the right arm, even though that's the dinosaur's left arm, we're looking at it, it's on the right. So it will just make more sense for us if we keep it that way. So we've got right arm, we've got the right leg, we've got the body, we've got the left arm and the left leg. And can you see that the ordering of these layers is important? If I were to move this body around, you can see what's happening. It's not quite working. You can see our legs are now in front, our arms are in front. So I would suggest that you lay this out in the way that you want. So I've got my front right leg here, my left leg at the back. It's all looking good. Right, so if you hit Control T on whichever you've got selected, so if you hit Control T, you can see a boundary box appears around the body. And if you move this, can you see that it's moving around? If I rotate it, it's moving around this little pivot point in the middle. Okay, you can move that pivot point, and the see, I can grab this and put it where I want it. So if I put it sort of down here, right near the pelvis kind of area, and rotate it, can you see now that it's kind of rotating in a more natural way? He's kind of moving from the legs, from the hip. So that makes a bit more sense for us now. And what I suggest you do is just, if you hit enter, that will remove the boundary box. So if you just move around and have a look at this, so let's have a look at this left arm, Control T. If I rotate it, can you see how it's just rotating around the middle pivot point? It's not looking right. But if I move that pivot point to where the arm connects to the body and move it, can you see now that that's starting to animate a little bit more realistically? It's animating from the shoulder joint. So what I suggest you do, it's not important for Unity, you're going to have to do this again in Unity, but I would suggest you just experiment with this and move them where you think they should go, so you can get a feel for how your character will look when you animate it. So you can see we could have a bit of a running motion there. The legs looking good. If I do the head and do Control T, we obviously want that to rotate from the neck joint, so let's move it to the neck, and you can see, you know, it's moving from the neck now, which is great. And that's kind of what you should be doing. You should be having a look and just seeing how your model is animating and moving from all those points. It's basically rigging. You're rigging up a skeleton here. Now what we need to do is when we export this from Photoshop and want to start moving it into Unity, we need to make sure that we separate these different elements out. Unity will not be able to read the layers of this file. We're going to save it as a PNG and we're going to animate it all separately and put it all together in Unity. So if I were to export this now, I wouldn't have the freedom of being able to animate all these separate objects, all these separate parts of the body. And what you need to do is, again, hit Control T, and you need to lay these out. So you see the boundary box around it again. Control T has got the box all around it. We need to make sure that when we lay these out, that the different elements don't clash. So let me do that. Control T on this arm. If I were to lay this here, okay, it would be no good, because if I were to draw, if I just use my marquee tool, if I were to draw a square around it, I wouldn't be able to do it without grabbing a bit of the head, a bit of the body. So you've got to make sure that you lay these out in a way that makes sense. Okay, so Control T, you want to make sure you leave a lot of room between these different elements, because you're going to need to draw a box around them in Unity. Does that make sense? So the right leg, oops, Control T, and then move it. Oops, just move the pivot point by mistake. Hit enter. The left leg, Control T, move that there. Okay, the left arm, move that there. Tell you what, I might move these down here so we've got a bit more space. So let's have a look. Control T, there's the box around it. The right arm, so I keep hitting the right mouse button by mistake. I'm just using my trackpad here. So let's move that down here. Hit enter. And I'm going to move the head down there as well. And the body up at the top. So if you just quickly hit Control T, and as you can see, right there's the boundary box, there's nothing in the way of that one. So look at the head, Control T, that looks about okay. I can see nothing's clashing. Control T, that should be okay. Maybe I'll just move it up slightly. Let's look at these legs. Control T, that looks good. And the right leg, Control T, great. Okay, so with this all laid out properly, and we've got room to draw boxes around all these different bits, I'm going to do File, Save As. I'm going to go to my Assets folder, and in here, in the sprites, I'm going to save that as a PNG. So you see all my other sprites are in here. I'm going to save this as Dino Enemy, and then hit save. Hit OK. And now we will have a nice PNG with transparency and our different elements laid out properly. So in the next video, I'm going to start bringing it into Unity and have a look at rigging it up in Unity.